Ex-fiancé lied about heart surgery to escape child support. I fought back. I was 8 months pregnant, standing in a beautiful custom Ankara gown at my own housewarming party, completely oblivious. And then she walked in. She wasn't just his mistress, she was pregnant too. She stood there and watched me throw up from shock, and for 5 years all I felt was pure, burning hate. But that hate didn't last, because the man who ruined my life, Tunde, turned out to be an even worse father to both of our sons. He abandoned my son Ayo and his other son Malik. And when he finally came back, he lied about needing heart surgery just to manipulate his way back into Ayo's life while still refusing to acknowledge Malik. You won't believe the courtroom battle that followed, or the impossible alliance I had to form to protect my son. This is the story of how my greatest enemy became my most unlikely family. Before we dive into the chaos, hit that like button and tell me where you're watching from in the comments.
My ex-fiancé's secret fiancé showed up at my housewarming party, not to celebrate, but to announce they were having a baby too. I broke off the engagement instantly and made sure she, Chantelle, got absolutely nothing from him in court. 5 years later, she wants to co-parent because he, Tunde, completely abandoned both children. I'm Simisola, a Nigerian woman in her early 30s living in Atlanta, Georgia, and I still can't believe my life is this chaotic. I remember the exact evening everything exploded. I was 8 months pregnant, looking radiant in a custom-made Ankara gown my mother sent from Lagos. I was surrounded by friends and members of the local Nigerian community, opening my 10th baby gadget. My feet ached from the pregnancy and a day of hosting, but I was genuinely, stupidly happy. Then Chantelle walked in. I didn't know who she was at first, just a striking Caucasian woman in a shimmery silver dress that was completely inappropriate for the occasion. My cousin Ngozi stopped mid-speech while telling a funny story about our childhood, and I watched the smile vanish from her face. I knew instantly that the spirit of Wahala had entered the room. "Good evening, everyone," Chantelle said, her voice piercing the noise. "Sorry I'm late to the party. I'm Chantelle, Tunde's wife-to-be." The room fell silent. It was a silence so heavy you could hear the distant traffic on I-85. I just stared at her, my mind failing to make sense of her words. Tunde's wife-to-be? Tunde Adisa was my fiancé. We'd had our traditional engagement ceremony 6 months ago and were planning the church wedding. We were having a baby. "I think you are mistaken," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "Tunde is my fiancé." Chantelle smirked, a cold, calculated smile. "Oh, I know exactly who you are, Simisola. Tunde talks about you constantly." "Well, used to," she corrected, before he realized he was in love with me. Ngozi started towards her, but I held up a hand. I needed to hear the full extent of the foolishness. "I'm pregnant too," Chantelle continued, placing a hand on her noticeably flat stomach with a dramatic flourish. 4 months, Tunde's baby. I thought you should know this before you waste any more time planning a future that is not going to happen. I stood up, pushing against the weight of my 8-month belly. "Get out!" "Tunde's been staying at my loft in Midtown most nights for the past 4 months, she announced, refusing to move. "He said he was waiting for the right moment to tell you, but I figured, why wait? You deserve to know the man you are engaged to is building a real family with me." That's when I felt the nausea hit, and I vomited all over my beautiful Ankara gown and the Persian rug I just imported. The next few hours were a dizzying blur. Ngozi drove me to my sister's house. Tunde was not at my place. I called him 20 times, no answer. Finally, at 1 a.m., he walked into my sister's living room like a ghost. "How was the party?" he asked, completely missing the state I was in. I was sitting in the dark, still in the soiled dress. "Chantelle showed up," I stated. I watched him physically recoil. His face went pale to a deep red and back to a sickly yellow. Simisola, babe, I can explain. It's not... She's pregnant. It's complicated. Get out. Please, just listen. I stood and walked to the guest room, locking the door behind me. I could hear him outside begging, making excuses in a panicked whisper. I lay down and didn't cry. I felt my swan kick inside me, and in that moment, I made a silent vow. I was going to ruin him. The next morning, I called Barrister Abisola Okoro, the most respected and feared family lawyer in the Nigerian community. She was known as the Iron Lady. She was in her late 50s, impeccably dressed, with a stern, intelligent face. Before Tunde could touch it, I drained our joint savings account, a total of $75,000. Abisola listened, her pen never pausing as she jotted down notes. Did you know of this affair before the party? No, not until yesterday. Everyone saw my reaction. My cousin, 50 friends, they all witnessed me finding out in real time. Abisola gave a brief, shark-like smile. Excellent. The humiliation is a powerful tool. And this Chantelle, did she know he was engaged? She called herself his fiancé at my housewarming party. She knew. Even better, Abisola declared, leaning back in her leather chair. Here is the strategy, Simisola. You file for dissolution of the traditional marriage and a civil suit for fraud and emotional distress immediately. You will be calm, strategic, and meticulous. When we are through, Tunde will wish he had stayed faithful. I hired a private investigator named Cyrus. He looked like a kind retired accountant. In less than 72 hours, Cyrus uncovered everything. Tunde had been seeing Chantelle, a sales representative at his company, for 9 months. He had bought her a used car and was paying the lease on her midtown loft using money he had claimed was for business investments. The crucial detail that changed everything: Chantelle had known he was not only engaged, but that I was pregnant. She had text messages explicitly detailing my condition. Tunde had told her I was just a cultural obligation and we were only formally married on paper, a blatant lie about the traditional engagement. Abisola clapped softly when I presented the evidence. This is beautiful work, Simisola. Truly devastating. The legal proceedings began. Tunde tried to argue for reconciliation, claiming the affair was a temporary lapse. He attempted to play the victim of a conniving mistress. Then Abisola presented the facts: bank statements, the car registration in Chantelle's name, the lease agreement, and Tunde's vile text messages calling me the cultural anchor. The most damning evidence, the part that disgusted the judge, a text from 2 weeks before the party where Chantelle asked if she should make her presence known. Tunde had replied, "Not yet. Let my people have their party, then we can clean up the mess." They had planned the humiliation. I sat in the courtroom at 8 months pregnant and watched Tunde realize the depth of his destruction. Georgia allows for fault in divorce proceedings, which influences asset division. Abisola successfully argued that Tunde had committed emotional abuse, fraud, and had recklessly wasted marital assets on his mistress. The ruling: I was awarded the house, 80% of all combined assets, and full custody of our son upon birth. Tunde received supervised visitation once a month and had to pay punitive damages, my legal fees, and substantial child support. Chantelle's fate. She filed a counterclaim, arguing Tunde had promised her a future, but Abisola destroyed her in court, proving she had knowingly and maliciously participated in the destruction of a legitimate union. Miss Chantelle, the judge stated, you made a choice to involve yourself with a committed man. You chose to inflict emotional distress on a pregnant woman. The consequences of these choices are yours to bear. Case dismissed. She got nothing. I gave birth to my son Ayo 3 weeks later. He was perfect. Tunde showed up at the hospital. I allowed him 10 minutes with Ongozi present. He held Ayo and cried, murmuring apologies. I just watched him hold the son he had merely thrown away for a fleeting affair. Chantelle had her baby, a boy named Malik, 4 months after Ayo.
I knew this because Ngozi was a diligent detective on social media. For a brief time, Tunde tried to be present for both boys, posting photos and playing the devoted father. It lasted about 7 months. Then visits became erratic. He'd cancel on Ayo at the last minute or show up late. By the time Aya was 2, Tunde was essentially gone. He paid the court-mandated support, but he was nothing more than a bank account. Through whispers, I heard that things with Chantelle had crumbled. Tunde never moved in with her. He never married her. The fantasy they had built collapsed. I didn't care. I was busy rebuilding. I launched a successful tech consulting business from my home office. I was happy. Then 5 years after the housewarming party, Chantelle knocked on my door. I barely recognized her. The confident woman was gone, replaced by someone tired and worn down. "What do you want?" I asked through the screen door. "Can we talk, please? It's about Ayo and Malik and Tunde." I let her in. She sat on my living room sofa, the same one where I had sat that terrible night, and she began to cry. "He's gone," she choked out. "Tunde, he just vanished." "Gone where?" "I don't know. He stopped answering calls 6 months ago. He moved to California for a new opportunity and didn't tell either of us. He just left." I sat opposite her, feeling no emotion. "I'm sorry that happened to you, but I don't know what you expect me to do." Malik asks about his dad all the time. He sees other fathers and asks why his isn't around. He's 5. He just knows his dad doesn't want him. "That is not my problem." I know it is not, but Ayo has you. You have stability. You have your family. Malik has me, but I'm barely keeping us afloat. I'm working 2 catering jobs. I'm drowning. Again, not my problem. She looked at me with raw desperation. "I know you hate me. You have every right. I was foolish and selfish. I didn't think about the consequences. I only thought of myself."
"Is this where you apologize?" I asked Chantelle. "Would it matter?" She replied, "No." "Then I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm asking for help." "Help with what? Co-parenting?" I laughed, a cynical, bitter sound. "You want me to help you parent the child you had with my fiancé while we were together." Chantelle countered that our sons, Ayu and Malik, are half-brothers who share a failure of a father, arguing that they deserve to know each other. I hated that she had a point. Ayu was already starting to ask questions about fathers and siblings, and I needed to control the narrative. 2 weeks later, I texted her, "Ayo misses Malik. We need to figure something out for them, not for us," and proposed a coffee meeting. At the meeting, Chantelle presented a detailed 3-year-old plan for play dates and shared holidays, created since she realized Tunde wasn't coming back. I agreed to strictly supervised monthly public play dates, age-appropriate truths only, and emphasized that I would end the arrangement immediately if she tried any manipulation. We shook hands, officially becoming professional co-parents. The boys clicked instantly, and Malik started calling Ayu his big brother. Chantelle admitted she admired me for giving her a chance, and we began to talk as 2 women navigating the ruins of one selfish man. 18 months into our arrangement, Tunde returned, pleading to be in Ayu's life because he was diagnosed with a serious heart condition requiring surgery and wanted to fix his mistakes before he ran out of time. I felt no sympathy. I countered that he was a stranger to Ayu and his sudden return would only confuse my son. I asked if he planned to see Malik too, and he grew uncomfortable, admitting Ayu was his priority right now because I was the one he was formally engaged to, effectively abandoning Malik all over again. I saw that he was still the same selfish person, only now motivated by his own mortality, and told him to have his lawyer contact mine. I immediately called Barrister Bisola Okoro, who warned that because Tunde had parental rights and was claiming sobriety and therapy, a judge would likely grant some form of visitation. She advised me to fight for strictly supervised visits and to document Tunde's blatant favoritism of Ayu over Malik to show a judge he was not genuinely interested in being a father. Chantelle soon found out Tunde was back,
and called me, breaking down after learning he still didn't want to see Malik. Our shared outrage over his continued selfishness solidified our bond. She tearfully told me I was her hero for giving Malik a chance and offered to testify in court about Tunde's true character as a father. I ended the call, reflecting on the insanity of my life. My ex-fiancé was leveraging a heart condition to force his way back into my son's life, and his mistress had become my closest ally. Tunde filed for visitation, and Abisola fought back hard. We were headed back to court before the same judge who remembered our original dissolution, the affair, and every devastating detail.
Tunde's lawyer argued he was reformed, presenting evidence of therapy, sobriety, and medical treatment, claiming Ayo deserved to know his father. Barrister Abisola Okoro countered with Tunde's own texts, showing he didn't want to see Malik, his 5 years of minimal contact, and his overall pattern of abandonment. The judge, noting a pattern of selective parenting, demanded to know why Tunde sought visitation with one son while avoiding the other. The judge's ruling granted Tunde supervised visitation with Ayo, 2 hours once a month with a court-appointed mediator. Crucially, the judge ordered him to establish visitation with Malik as well, declaring, "You don't get to pick and choose which children you parent." Tunde was pale but had to comply. When Tunde arrived for his first visit 3 weeks later, Ayo was confused, referring to him as a strange man, and was clearly uncomfortable. I explained simply that this was his biological father who had been away, but Ayo was distant and the session ended awkwardly. Predictably, Tunde didn't go see Malik, prompting the judge to order him and Chantelle into mediation. The situation escalated when Chantelle called me, distraught, because Tunde was now filing for custody of Malik to look like Father of the Year and better meet the judge's orders. He was attempting to paint Chantelle as an unfit mother. Despite my reservations, I agreed to testify as a character witness for Malik's sake. During the brutal custody hearing, I revealed everything: how Tunde had abandoned Ayo, his minimal contact, his explicit statement that he didn't want a relationship with Malik, and that his current interest was solely about appearances to benefit himself. The judge was convinced by my testimony and denied Tunde's custody request and granted him the same supervised visitation with Malik as Ayo. Tunde dropped the bombshell. His severe heart condition was a lie, a manipulation tactic to garner sympathy and force his way back into our lives. The judge was disgusted and used her final ruling to punish his deceit. Visitation with both children would continue as ordered, but she added a stipulation that Tunde must undergo parenting classes and continue therapy, providing proof every 3 months. If he missed a single visit or failed to provide proof, his rights would be revoked entirely. Tunde lasted 4 months before he missed visits, stopped therapy, and disappeared again. The judge revoked his visitation rights. Chantelle and I settled into our unique co-parenting relationship. 6 months after Tunde's final departure, Chantelle revealed she was dating Lekan, a Nigerian civil engineer who was kind and good with Malik. I confessed to Chantelle that I no longer hated her. I was indifferent, seeing her only as the person connected to me because our sons were siblings. We walked together to the ice cream truck, watching Ayo and Malik hold hands and laugh. 6 months later, the boys started the same school and were thriving. Chantelle brought Lekan to a playdate and he was approved by both Malik and Ayo. It wasn't the life I'd planned, but it was a life of peace and authentic contentment, built on protecting our children. Your son is very protective of Malik, Lekan said, watching Ayo ensure Malik got the first turn on the slide. They are protective of each other, I replied. It's sweet. Leka noted that Chantelle spoke of how I had saved her life, but I dismissed the praise, insisting I simply allowed the boys to be siblings because they deserved a chance. My sister, Adana, still thought I was too forgiving, but she hadn't witnessed the working reality of the broken situation that had turned into a functional family unit. On Ayo's 7th birthday, Tunde sent a simple expected email, which I deleted without response. Ayo blew out his candles with Malik singing the loudest, and my mother, who had been skeptical, admitted the arrangement was surprisingly functional. That night, I reflected on the past 7 years, the betrayal, the humiliation, and the destruction, which I had survived to rebuild a successful life and raise an incredible son. I had navigated an impossible co-parenting situation with the woman who ruined my engagement and was now happy, not with a naive or fantasy happiness, but with the real happiness that comes from surviving hard things and finding peace in imperfect situations by putting my child first. My phone buzzed with a text from Chantelle, calling me an amazing mom. After a few deleted attempts, I replied simply, "Thanks. Malik's a good kid. You're doing great." She responded, "We're all doing great. Who would have thought?" I smiled, looking up at the stars, accepting the weirdness of life. Somewhere, Tunde was living his life, likely making the same mistakes, but now he was irrelevant to our peace.
So that's it. That's how my family, which started with a perfect dream and ended with a dramatic, humiliating explosion, somehow managed to become this messy, unconventional, working thing. I watched Tunde leave, not just once, but twice. And each time, I realized the lie wasn't just about the affair. It was about who I thought he was. I had to learn that indifference is often more powerful than revenge. I never forgave Chantelle, but watching Ayo and Malik hold hands, that's my peace. That's what I fought for. But my story isn't over yet, is it? Just last week I got a text, a simple text after years of silence, saying, "I'm back in Atlanta. We need to talk about Ayo's college fund. Tunde, I need to know what you think. What would you do? Would you answer him? Would you ignore it and risk him showing up at your door again?" Drop your answer and your advice in the comments below. And if you related to the chaos, the heartbreak, or the surprising friendship, please hit like and subscribe so you can be here for the next chapter. Thank you for listening to my story.